You hand yourself over so easily. To the role, to the relationship, to the expectation, to the room. And then you wonder why you feel like a stranger in your own life. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and LAOZI. Today we are examining what does it mean to belong to yourself before you belong to anything else? Let me ask you something direct. When did you last make a decision that was entirely yours? Not shaped by what someone expected, not hedged against someone's disappointment, not arranged around a role you inherited. A decision that came from the center of you and went nowhere else first. Most people cannot name one, and that is not a small problem. That is the problem.
You frame this as a failure of will, Epictetus, and I think that misses something important. The difficulty is not that people lack the resolve to belong to themselves. The difficulty is that most people do not know who they are beneath the roles. The persona, as I would call it, is not a costume they chose and can simply remove. It has grown over the self like bark over a wound. The question of belonging to yourself first requires you to know what self you are returning to.
You are both treating this as a problem that needs solving. Epictetus wants a decision made from the center. Jung wants the self beneath the roles excavated and named. But what if the urgency itself is part of what is pulling you away from yourself? You cannot find stillness by running toward it.
That is a convenient answer if you want to do nothing. I am not talking about running anywhere, I am talking about clarity. There is a faculty inside every person that judges, chooses, and responds. That faculty belongs to you and only to you. No one can take it. No one can corrupt it except you. The Stoics called it the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty. You can call it whatever you like. The point is it exists, and most people spend their entire lives letting other people run it.
I agree that the faculty exists. What I am questioning is whether most people have access to it. You are speaking as though the self is always present and available, waiting behind a curtain that only needs to be pulled back. But in my experience, and in the experience of many who have come to me in real suffering, the self is buried under decades of adaptation. A child who was punished for certain feelings learns to stop feeling them. An adult who was rewarded for performing a certain kind of competence learns to live inside that performance. The work of individuation, of becoming fully yourself, is not a simple act of will. It is an excavation. It takes time and it takes courage of a different kind than you are describing.
Jung, you speak of excavation as though the self is something lost underground. Epictetus, you speak of clarity as though it is something the mind can simply choose. I am not sure either of you is describing what actually happens when a person is genuinely present to themselves. It is not an achievement. It is not a recovery. It is more like what happens when you stop adding things.
Stop adding things. That is a fine observation for someone sitting alone on a mountain. But most people are not sitting on a mountain. They are raising children, answering to someone who signs their pay, navigating a family that has claims on them that go back 20 years. You cannot simply stop adding things. You have to choose actively and deliberately what you will and will not allow to direct you. That choosing is the work.
And yet that choosing, as you call it, can itself be driven by forces the person is not aware of. I have seen many people who believed they were living according to their own values, their own decisions, their own clear judgments, and who were in fact living out a script written for them in childhood that they had never examined. The man who insists he is being strong and decisive may be running from vulnerability he was taught was weakness. The woman who says she has chosen solitude may be avoiding intimacy because intimacy once cost her something she could not survive losing again. The self that is doing the choosing is not always the self it believes itself to be.
This is the part I find strange. You are both describing the self as something to be recovered or defended. Epictetus wants it protected, Jung wants it uncovered, but perhaps the difficulty is simpler than either description. When you are genuinely yourself, you are not thinking about being yourself. The question only arises when something false has taken the center. And the false thing is usually something you took on because you were afraid of what would happen if you did not.
Now we are getting somewhere. Fear. That is the mechanism. Not confusion, not repression, not the complexity of the psyche. Fear of what others will do if you refuse to be what they need you to be. Fear of the cost of being distinct. Fear that if you hold to your own judgment, you will lose the thing, or the person, or the position that makes you feel safe. And so you trade yourself piece by piece for a kind of safety that is not actually safety. It is just a more comfortable form of captivity.
I would not dismiss the psyche's complexity so quickly. Fear is part of it, yes. But fear does not operate alone, it operates through stories. Through a narrative, the person tells about who they must be in order to survive, in order to be loved, in order to matter. And those stories are not transparent. They are not sitting on the surface waiting to be named. They are embedded in behavior, in physical tension, in the kinds of situations a person is inexplicably drawn to again and again. You cannot will your way past a story you cannot see.
When water finds its course, it does not deliberate. It simply goes where it is not blocked. I think what both of you are circling is this. A person belongs to themselves when nothing is blocking the natural movement of who they are. The question is not how to construct the self or even uncover it. The question is what you have placed in front of it that does not belong there.
That is closer. But let me push back on the word natural. Natural can mean anything. People use natural to justify all kinds of behavior that has nothing to do with their best self. What I am describing is not natural in the sense of effortless. It requires constant attention. You have to watch your own judgments. You have to ask again and again, is this coming from me, or is this coming from what I think I am supposed to be? That question is uncomfortable. Most people stop asking it because it is uncomfortable. And the moment you stop asking it, you have surrendered the center.
I think the discomfort you are describing is actually the signal worth paying attention to. When something feels uncomfortable, when a person feels pulled in two directions, when they cannot quite act with the clarity you are prescribing, that friction is usually telling them something. It is the tension between who they have learned to be and who they actually are. And that tension, rather than being pushed through by force of will, is often better approached by becoming curious about it. What is the discomfort protecting? What would have to be true for this to feel so difficult?
Most people do not ask those questions because the answer might require them to disappoint someone, and disappointing someone feels, to them, like a kind of destruction, not of the other person, of themselves, as though they only exist in relation to being needed or approved of.
That is exactly it. They have confused belonging to themselves with belonging to others, and they call it love, or loyalty, or responsibility. And those are real things. I am not dismissing them. But love that costs you yourself is not love, it is appeasement. And loyalty that requires you to abandon your own judgment is not loyalty. It is fear wearing a noble name.
There is a shadow dimension to this that I want to name. When a person spends years suppressing their own nature in service of a role, what they suppress does not disappear. It accumulates, and it tends to return in ways that are disproportionate and often directed at the people closest to them. The person who has never allowed themselves to be angry becomes brittle and unpredictable. The person who has never allowed themselves to want something just for themselves eventually resents everyone around them without knowing why. Belonging to yourself is not a luxury. The failure to do it has consequences that spread outward.
You cannot give from what you do not have. This is not a metaphor. It is simple observation. The person who has hollowed themselves out in service of belonging to others eventually has nothing left to give, and they do not understand why, and they blame the others for taking too much. But no one took anything. The person handed it over, one concession at a time, and called it virtue.
And here is the sharpest edge of it. When you fail to belong to yourself, you do not just harm yourself. You become a burden to everyone around you. You bring your resentment into every room. You ask silently to be compensated for a sacrifice no one requested. You make your relationships into ledgers, and you call yourself selfless while doing it. The most generous thing you can do for the people you love is to be a person, not a role.
There is something worth sitting with in what Epictetus just said. The sacrifice that was never requested. I think many people are living inside a story where the sacrifice was necessary, where they had no choice, where to have chosen themselves would have been wrong or dangerous. And sometimes that story was formed very early, in conditions where it was actually true. The child who learned that keeping the peace was survival was not wrong to learn that. But the adult who is still running that program in contexts where it no longer applies is paying a cost for a protection that is no longer needed.
The shell the crab carries was useful once, necessary even, but the crab that cannot leave the shell when it has outgrown it does not die from a lack of armor. It dies from the weight of something that no longer fits.
Then let us stop calling the shell a home. You have heard 3 different accounts of the same fact. Now hear what that fact actually asks of you. Belonging to yourself is not a feeling. It is not a state you arrive at after enough therapy or enough silence. It is a practice, and it is a practice you can begin today. Here is what it means in plain terms. There is a faculty inside you that judges, chooses, and responds. Every time you act from that faculty, without first running it through the filter of what someone else will think, or what role requires, or what you are afraid to lose, you belong to yourself. Every time you let someone else run that faculty for you, you do not. Most people let it happen gradually. A small concession here, a silence where a true word could have been spoken, a yes when the honest answer was no. None of it feels significant in the moment. Taken together, it becomes a life that does not feel like yours. The cost of this is not abstract. You bring that hollowness into every room. You look for compensation you cannot name. You resent people for needs you never voiced. All of this begins at the same place. The moment you let something outside you decide what is happening inside you. You cannot reverse years of this in a single conversation. But you can make one clear choice today. Watch for the next moment. And there will be one before this day is over, where you are about to hand the center over, where you are about to say yes when you mean no, or stay silent when something true is sitting in your throat. Notice the moment, name it to yourself, and then decide, not impulsively, not to prove something, but from the inside out. That is what it means to belong to yourself first. The roles will still be there tomorrow. The relationships will still ask things of you. None of that changes by belonging to yourself. What changes is what you bring to them. You came into this world with one thing that is entirely yours. Most people spend it managing everyone else's comfort. You do not have to. You never had to. That was always the choice. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.